And welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by a man who's all pro and no cons. He's all upside. It's Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. I like all pro, no con, but maybe for purposes of this show, all pro, no rel?
Yeah, there we go.
Does that work?
You're all pro and no rel. Because on today's show, following up from our previous show, we're talking to Dennis Crowley. He is the founder and owner of Kingston Stockade FC. But in more newsiness, he is one of the parties that filed the request for arbitration that we talked about on the previous show, essentially asking FIFA to make sure that the US soccer follows the FIFA statute about promotion and relegation.
Indeed.
Oh, so we talked about it a bit yesterday, but obviously it's much better to talk to Dennis to get his take on sort of why they filed it, what they're hoping for, what he thinks the effects might be, and also sort of a bit about Kingston Stockade FC as well, because it's a fascinating team, especially the way it's run in terms of I think it's been referred to as an open source team. Yeah.
And I enjoyed the interview. I enjoyed hearing about Kingston Stockade, but I also very much enjoyed sort of like kind of the overall approach they're taking and why they're doing this, because I thought it might be a little bit more like it's just got to change. Things need to be wrong. Like, this is wrong.
Yeah.
I don't care about Major League Soccer, and it's a lot more nuanced, as are most issues.
That's interesting, because a lot of our sort of reticence to talk about the whole pro-rel issue is because it's very divided and there's a lot of vinegar. You know what I mean? So we thought it's really good to talk about someone who's first of all like involved in the middle of it because they have a team in the mythical D4, and also someone who has filed this request for arbitration, which could be one of the major turning points in the history of American soccer and possible pro-rel or not, depending on what happens. All right, have we hyped this up enough?
I believe we have.
Okay, so shall we play our interview with Dennis?
I believe we shall. So joining us on the line now, we've got Dennis Crowley, the owner of the Kingston Stockade, the founder of Foursquare and Dodgeball, and one of the primary people involved in this request for arbitration that we were talking about on yesterday's show, since this is the Friday show. Dennis, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
So request for arbitration for sport to the Court of Arbitration for sport. There it is. It's a lot of different combinations that we've used acronyms for because it gets confusing. I'm sure you have a better grasp of things, but can you tell us a little bit about the request itself and maybe how it came to be?
Yeah, actually, I'd like to know when it came to be, because obviously news broke sort of Thursday morning / afternoon, but has this been in the works for a long time?
Yeah, it's been in the works for a bunch. I've been chatting with the folks from Miami for a while about this. And, Ricardo and I got connected through mutual friends in the soccer world. And, he is passionate about promotion relegation from where he sits in D2. And we've been passionate about it from where we sit in Division 4. And, we each had kind of interesting and similar ideas about, hey, how do you go about affecting change? How does this actually happen? I think one of the tricky things is, as a fan, there's a lot of fans that are interested in this idea of promotion and relegation, but there's not a lot of people that look into number one, how hard it is to do, and how many moving pieces there are, and all the different nuances between different leagues, especially when you get down to D4. And then I think number two is, what do you do? How would you actually get change? Do you make signs and hang them at a stadium? Do you write a letter to the commissioner of the league? People don't know what to do. And admittedly, Stockade has been in this boat. And our answer was, let's just teach people how to make clubs. Let's write a lot about it, make a lot of noise about it, and fortunately, we've had some success, and we published this blueprint, and other people start making clubs, and hey, now D4 is maybe a little bit stronger than it was 2 years ago, or maybe a little bit bigger, and that's a good thing. And through chatting with some of the folks from Miami, they were like, listen, there's other opportunities, or there's other mechanisms to do this too, and that's where I started learning about, CAS and the way that other people have filed. Basically these requests for arbitrations for a wide number of things across a wide variety of sports. And generally it's just something that you do when you think that someone's not following the rules. Someone's not following the rules, you write one of these things out and you send it in. They look at it and they say, okay, is there something here, yes or no? And if so, what do we do about it? And so, I'm not 100% sure what happens in the process after. This is my first time doing anything like this. I do know that the process doesn't happen overnight. It could take months. It could take a year for this to happen. But at the end of the day, this is about the rules that FIFA has and the way that the different member organizations within FIFA either follow them or don't. And I think the thing that we specifically pointed out is that the USSF doesn't follow the rules as they're spelled out. And so all we asked for was some clarification on why that is.
So in terms of CAS deciding if something is there, if it's worth moving forward, do they have to wait for FIFA to respond, or can they say, hey, we think there's something here, but we're awaiting your response before things move forward?
My understanding is the way that it works is like CAS is the one that says, hey, listen, FIFA, you have to address this. Mm-hmm. And so then FIFA will look at it and say, okay, hey, CONCACAF, you got to talk to USSF about this. Mm-hmm. And I believe that's the way that it kind of moves down the line.
I see. And so what would you all say, like, I know it's, as you said, it's not overnight. It might take even a year or more, but what would you say you all are like hoping for? Like, what would be your most ideal outcome? And what is an outcome that you are willing to accept, given that if it is arbitration, if that's what it comes down to, it seems like no one ever really gets exactly what they want in arbitration.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to hear what you all are really, really hoping for, and then what you would be okay with CAS determining.
I don't think this is a situation where, the claim gets heard and resolved and someone snaps their fingers and suddenly we have this magical functioning pyramid.
That would be lovely.
It's not the way that it works. But I do think a great thing that would come out of it is for, say the USSF, for example, to come out and be like, all right, listen, we have not been as transparent as we should have been about what the roadmap is for the league and the way that we think about this. And we know that we have to mandate, institute these, promotion relegation in some way. And so here's the way that we propose that we will do it over, 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is, but just to have a plan for it. I think what's frustrating for some fans is that it's been brought up like, oh, we'll do this. We'll do this at some point in the future. But there's no plan, there's no timeline, and there's no accountability for it. It's like, well, what happened to it? We thought we were talking about instituting something like this 5 years ago, and we didn't. So now what do we do? And I think this, the claim is designed to introduce a little bit of that accountability. Okay, so what's the response? Like we formally asked a question through this CAS process, and now we formally get a response as what's the answer? And I'm hoping the answer comes in a form that we can share with fans of soccer in the U.S. and fans of it around the world.
What if the CAS rules in a way that sort of doesn't give you what you wanted? Is there a chance that it sort of solidifies the sort of non-pyramid as it is? Like, is there a danger that this sort of establishes a precedent that you don't want?
I think just to have some level of clarification is going to be helpful. Mm-hmm. And if it's not everything that we want, or everything that fans want, or it's not the ideal version, then maybe at least it's a starting point. Like very rarely when you negotiate something, you get everything you want. You kind of you compromise, and then from there you can build off. And that would be a great start, as long as there's just a willingness to even consider these types of things, promotion relegation, not just shut it down immediately as like it's impossible, it'll never work. Sometimes you got to come to the table and be like, oh, listen, let's just figure out a way to do this. Let's try it once or twice or whatever, and we'll do it over the next 3 years. Like, this is the plan, okay? Then we'll try it, we'll see how it works, then we'll reevaluate. I think that's a great outcome, just to make a little bit of forward progress here.
Going back to one of your earlier points where maybe people don't quite know like how hard it would be, how difficult that process would be of establishing relegation promotion, have you thought about what system you think could work? Because we talked about it a little bit, and it was sort of like, well, I don't know, like, can you buy in at a certain level? Do you have to start at the very beginning? Like, do you have, like, well, what do you do with clubs that are already at a certain level? Do they have to, like, buy in at a different level? Do they get any money back? Like, it seems like there's a lot of wrinkles in there, and I'm sure you probably don't have, like, a fully formed idea, but I'm wondering if you have an idea of how it might work, at least in the beginning.
I think each one of those questions is probably its own 30 to 40-minute podcast, to be honest. I'll tell you, Kingston operates in the fourth division, and actually, there's not even a fourth division, like in the mythical fourth division. And I like this league a lot, and I like what it does for small communities. And what I can see is what happens when some of the best teams in the league start to outgrow the league. Where do they go? And there is no answer, right? And that's a question that needs to be solved. And a couple of the problems or challenges, opportunities, whatever you want to call it, is we play a really short season, and we play the short season with college kids. A lot of the teams do. And in order for us to go to any other league, first we got to start playing a longer season, right? So that's hard. If you're going to play a longer season, you can't have college kids because the kids are back in school during the fall. And if that's the case, you're probably paying the players because it's a huge time commitment. Mm-hmm. And there's a huge gap in between, where we are, short season college players, D4, and this idea of the longer season D4. And I think once you fix that problem, then you can then you got teams and clubs that are playing longer season. They got a robust roster. You can take the best ones and talk about moving them up a level. But you can only move them up a level if there's enough teams that they can play nearby. Because if there's not enough teams nearby, then they're going to blow their whole budget on travel, and that's not good for anyone. And so then that's the next problem you have to solve. But once you solve this problem where the teams can travel regionally, whether you want to break, the NPSL is such a great example of this, where you've got 4 regions and 13 or 14 different conferences. And if you had a little bit of this up and down movement just within these regions or just within these conferences, I really believe that could work. And I think you'd really get people that were aggressively investing in all sorts of different types of infrastructure to make sure that their team, their players, their squad would be at the top of this little mini pyramid. And so that's the way I think about it. When I look at the arbitration and kind of the claim that we're filing, to me, it's not just about oh my gosh, it's D1 is closed. It's D4 is closed. There's going to be 2 new leagues in D3, and they're going to be brand new leagues from scratch, and they're probably they might be closed, right? And it's we can't be making new infrastructure and not improving on it when we make it. And so going through this process is an attempt to try to to really just try to fix that and get it back on course, I think, to where a lot of people think it should be.
Yeah, so a lot of people, when they first hear this sort of pro-rel, request for arbitration, they will immediately think about Major League Soccer. So it's really interesting for us to hear that you're sort of more focused on building something at the other end. But at the same time, it will affect Major League Soccer, right? If this does go through, and something similar to what you would like happens, and you're going to have, I imagine, some sort of panic at MLS headquarters, and the teams that have paid the expansion fees will be thinking, well, what happens to the thing I've bought into, which no longer happens? So is there a version of this that you see that sort of leaves MLS alone, leaves MLS closed, but opens up everything else below? Would that be an outcome that you'd be happy with, which is sort of pro-rel, but you can't be pro'd all the way to the Division 1? Or is that not good enough?
Yeah, it could be possible. I like the MLS a lot. There's great quality. There's great teams, great brands, great supporters. I'm in New York. There's 2 teams that are close to us. And I don't want to see the MLS go away. MLS has done great things for the sport.
Yeah.
And so I think that, the issue is, I'm always looking at it from the bottom up, right? People are like, Dennis, why do you care? Kingston's never going to be in the MLS. I'm like, yeah, I know we're not going to be in the MLS. We're never going to make it MLS. It's fine. It doesn't mean I can't care about the rest of the pyramid. Right. And so if I'm passionate about a D4 team having the right to move up to D3, and then if I'm passionate about a D3 team being so good that they move themselves up to D2, that just can't be the end of the story, right? They have to have the same right to get into that league. And does that mean that does the MLS fall apart by having a new team come up every now and then and sending one team down? I don't know. I don't think the whole thing collapsed. I think they've got a strong thing going on. They built a great product, and I understand that it would change. I don't think it's a self-destruct. At the same time, some people have floated by the model of like, well, maybe just MLS exist on the side. And it's just something where, like, if the USSF enforces and says, well, if you really want the D1 sanction, you have to have pro-rel, and they say, well, we don't want it, well, then you're not D1. And so what does that mean for them? I don't know what that means. But they already have a big enough brand. They already have these stadiums. They already have the teams, right? Maybe it doesn't affect them at all. But I think that's one of the interesting things to consider.
It just occurred to me that maybe one of the solutions would be, if this was implemented with a completely open system, you just have a very long timeline. Like, say it's like 10 or 15 years before we implement this. And then maybe the owners that have bought into MLS at 150 million or whatever it is recently, they still get a decade of getting their money's worth. Yeah. And the new expansion teams, if MLS expands in the meantime, maybe those guys pay less because they know. So essentially you have time to prepare the ground for all this change. Yeah,
you can't just you can't just pull the tablecloth out from under the table, right, and have the whole thing fall. I mean, that's not an option.
Yeah, I tried that when I was a kid. It went badly.
It's harder than it looks, right? But there's. I just totally lost my train.
I'm sorry.
I was thinking about the candlesticks falling over as you pull this thing over. There's like a really strong visual there. But you can't just do it right away, right? I've seen a whole bunch of these different proposals, and there's a ton of them floating around the internet. And some of them say, "Listen, it will take 10 years, right?" And on the 8th year or on the 10th year, the owners either have to decide to sell their team because they don't want to sign up for the new agreement that starts. Or they renew and they get back into it, right? But the point is, it gives people time to adjust to it, and I think that's fair, right? And I think really I think the thing that's missing is just a real roadmap. The fans draw up these roadmaps and they publish them on blog posts like I do, and they publish them on Twitter or whatever. And I think so many people doing that, it's just a signal to the Federation as a whole that people are begging for some kind of clarity about where all this is going. And it's like, please just show us a roadmap of where you think the whole system, not just one league, not just MLS or NASL, where do you think the whole pyramid is 5 years from now or 10 years from now? And show us a plan for how to get there. And I think if they just did something like that and just were open about it, people would be like, okay, all right, I either agree with it, I disagree with it, maybe I have some suggestions, but you're not in the dark anymore.
More from our conversation with Dennis in just a second, but first, a word from today's sponsor.
It's Blue Apron.
It is.
Blue Apron is the #1 fresh ingredient and recipe delivery service in the country. Mm-hmm. And we shall explain to our listeners exactly how it works. If you've never done Blue Apron, I feel like it's kind of like, what is that? How does it work? Taylor, explain what happens when you sign up for Blue Apron.
You sign up, you basically can then choose one of two different meal plans, either the 2-person plan or the family plan, depending on your needs.
So count the people in your house.
Yes, exactly. You and I tend to do the 2-person plan because we're both married and have no children. Mm-hmm. But I have family coming to town, and I think we might try to show off and act like we, go out and buy expensive things and exciting things by doing the family plan, at least on the next order. We shall see.
So the way it works is you get all the ingredients in one box, refrigerated in the box, and then you get the instructions of exactly what to do with those ingredients. So theoretically, you can't go wrong.
Exactly.
I've never gone wrong with a Blue Apron. I'm assuming you won't go wrong when you cook for your 4-person visit.
I would hope not. And you've got the pictures as well to help guide you.
Yes.
And you've got the checklist, which is always important as well, to make sure you've followed the steps properly and you're on the right step as well.
If I could rename Blue Apron, I'd call it Idiot Proof.
Ooh, that's... I mean, if you can do it, then I guess that's fair. That's fair.
Oh, burn. Mm-hmm. Ow.
We've got lots of good featured upcoming meals to choose from. So, Daryl, if you were going to promote... we'll keep it on theme.
Yeah.
If you're going to promote one of the upcoming meals, what would you go for?
I would definitely go whole grain pasta and summer vegetables with heirloom tomato.
Oh, you went tomato.
Caprese salad. I am a huge fan of caprese salad, so I'm super excited that it's going to be in the Blue Apron box. I mean, I'll still make the pasta and summer vegetables, but really I'm getting to that caprese salad.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite things, I know you are, one of my favorite things is cooking things I would not otherwise go with. I don't tend to cook a lot of fish, so I tend to go with that when I get Blue Apron. So I'd go the miso butter salmon and lo mein noodles with cucumber and charmed tomatoes. I don't know what a charmed tomato is, but I want to use one.
It's tomato with loads of good jokes.
That's probably it. It's a very affable tomato.
I'm not a fan of cucumber, so you are welcome to that.
Right.
Keep your paws off my caprese salad.
Your weird aversion to cucumbers is odd, and also you know that other people can order it, right? There's not one in order of caprese salads.
I understand that.
Hotly contested menu.
So check out this week's menu for yourself and get your first 3 meals for free with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/TSS.
You will love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron, so don't wait.
That's blueapron.com/TSS.
Blue Apron, a better way to cook.
And a better way to get caprese salads.
Now, thank you to Blue Apron for sponsoring today's show. Back to our conversation with Dennis. So one, I would say major inhibiting obstacle, at least from my mind, of MLS wanting to have relegation promotion is just that right now MLS is top dog, and it just doesn't seem like there's much reason for them to want to change the system. But that's me as a layperson who doesn't have much background in this. Do you all feel like there is a reason, there is basically an incentive for Major League Soccer to change the system, or is it just sort of this is what it needs to be because this is what FIFA dictates?
I don't know what the individual owners think. I don't overlap with a lot of the MLS owners, but it's hard for me to imagine that it wouldn't be a good overall thing for not just for the league but the pyramid in general, right? The whole season matters. You got better rivalries. You got better narratives that are coming up. You've got better players, more competition, more investment. It seems like it's a win for the fans, and it's a win for the players, for the entire system. And I don't know if this is dumb of me, but I have a hard time really wrapping my head around this idea of if this gets instituted, the whole thing falls apart. I don't see that. And, if there was signs that it wasn't working, then you'd go and adjust it and fix it. It's like you take the wrong turn on the highway. Doesn't mean your car explodes. You get back on the highway and you correct the mistake. So I don't know. It's just, it's a process, and I think there's got to be a little bit more transparency and more people involved in the process.
Going back to the request that you all submitted for 1 second, so it's obviously you all as an NPSL franchise, and then it's the Miami FC as the NASL franchise. My assumption is that there are probably other clubs out there in the NPSL and the NASL who are probably very keen for this to go forward. And I'm wondering, maybe, is it a situation in which you all are kind of out in front, maybe taking the brunt of this so that other clubs don't have to? Or is it sort of you all came up with this, you and Ricardo Silva came up with this and just said, yeah, let's do it?
To file something like this is just a lot of work, and there's a lot of people on a lot of conference calls figuring it out. And it's one of these where, more people more names on it might make it more effective, but it's also a logistical challenge. And so, it's listen, there's a team here, and you have a great D2 team, you got a great D4 team. If there was a D3 that was operating, we'd probably pull a D3 team into it too, but there's not, so you get 2 teams. And since then, because this went out this morning, the NPSL puts out a statement saying, listen, we support this. Every team in the league is behind, what's happening with the filing. All these other teams that operate in other leagues in D4 and below, have hit me up on Twitter and are retweeting and kind of talking about this. There's, I would say that the reaction I've gotten so far, and this is mostly just online stuff, comments and tweets and stuff, is probably, 85% positive.
Well, so speaking of things that are positive, I did want to take a moment to discuss the Kingston Stockade, as an organization. Can you tell people, maybe for those unfamiliar, a little bit about what went into the founding of the club and kind of what your guiding principles are there?
Yeah, my I'm in New York City right now, and my wife and I have an apartment in the city, and our baby, and we also have a house outside of the city. It's about 2 hours north in a town called Kingston, which is in the Hudson Valley, north of the city. And we were up there just one weekend, and I was like, it would be awesome if we could just go to a game, but NYCFC is 2 hours away. And when you walk around up there, you got all these people that are wearing, Premier League jerseys and La Liga jerseys, MLS jerseys, and you're just there's nothing up here for these people. If they want to watch a match, I was like, why don't we just put a team up here? Like, would it work? And it's one of these things where it's like the craziest, dumbest idea you've ever had until you start talking to people and they're like, that would be awesome. I would go. I think that'd be great. I know these great players. And then we put the thing together, we did this we started it in the fall of 2015. Our first season was spring 2016. I thought 200 people would show up, and then 800 people showed up. And then 800 people kept showing up. And then, we made a bunch of changes and we improved things for the second season, which was this year. And we made it to the playoffs. And we won the conference championship. And now we have a trophy, and the trophy's like 2 feet tall. It's awesome. And, 1,400 people showed up at the match. And, you can't walk around the Kingston or the Hudson Valley without people seeing, without seeing a T-shirt or a hat on someone, or people, kids walking around with jerseys. And it's awesome. It's just like this thing that we're doing for the, we're doing it for the community. It gets the players exposure, introduces kids to the game. And it's just like, there's nothing, everything about it is positive. And what we're trying to do is, because I have I'm on my second startup company, right? So I'm the founder of Foursquare and Dodgeball, and we built these companies from scratch. And it's hard to build a company, and it's hard to build a soccer team. And as we're building the team, it's like, listen, this time, let's write down everything that we did, right and wrong, and let's put it all in a blog post. We'll do 2 blog posts a year, and let's just be super, super transparent about what it takes to do this. Because when we started, I Googled how do you start a Division IV soccer team? And there was 0 results. And I'm like, well, that sucks. Someone should write something. And then as we started doing that, we got just a lot of positive feedback from people. And so I like to think of what we're doing as like a blueprint or a template for, hey, this is how much it costs to do something. It's very rewarding. It's a lot of work. It's a huge pain in the ass a lot of the time, but it's awesome, and the community loves it, and it's totally worth doing. Here's exactly how much it costs. Here's the 500 things you have to do. And here's where we went right, and here's where we went wrong. And we know that people use the blueprint to make their own clubs. I talk to people all the time that oh yeah, we're going to do something. We're going to spin it up, and we're in Oklahoma, and the first season's going to be next year, and we've been using your post as guidance. And I'm like, that's great. I may never see your club. I don't even know where you are, but you're using what we did as a blueprint. I think that's awesome.
Well, I have to ask this because you, I believe, are the first owner we've ever had on the show, and you are definitely the first cup-winning owner that we've ever had. So, first of all, I want to know,
does that get me another trophy?
I think it probably should. We'll send you, we have, coffee cups and mason glasses here, if you want either one of those, by all means.
I'll take it. I'll bronze it. Yeah.
But I feel like if I were a club owner and my club won something that gave me a physical piece of silverware, I think I would want to keep that. So I'm curious, where does the cup reside? And I'm also curious if you can comment on if there has ever been any alcohol consumed out of that cup.
These are 2 very important and very excellent questions.
Just the real reason we got you.
At the moment, the trophy resides on my kitchen counter.
That's what I wanted to hear.
And it's next to some bananas and a thing of English muffins. We're having a wrap party, wrap party for the end of the season for all the volunteers and the players. And we're having it at one of the local bars called Keegan Ales that supports us. And the idea is that we're gonna find a way to jam that trophy in behind the bar, so it's up there for everyone to enjoy. The trophy itself, it is beautiful, but it is not the type. It's not a cup. It's like a decorative trophy. It is possible to consume. It is possible to consume beers out of it. It looks more like you're shotgunning than doing anything else, but it is possible.
I like that you've kept it open. I'm pretty sure Chelsea did the same thing with the Premier League title. I believe that one is, I think it might be oranges and English muffins. Maybe not bananas and English muffins, but it's the same sort of display at Stamford Bridge.
We just call them muffins.
This is one of my favorite stories from the season is that we won that conference championship match. We're all at the bar with the team. The league, someone from the league sends me an email to congratulate me, a text message, the administrator for the league. And I was like, oh, thank you so much. And I was like, by the way, these trophies they're not very easy to drink out of. And she's like, yeah, that by design. Wait till you win the national championship. Then you'll see one that's easy to drink out of.
I see. So that's the way you do promotion relegation. You just get a bigger, more drinkable cup at each level, and then people really want to get to that next level. I'm with you now. I like this plan.
I just thought that was the most perfect response. It's like, you guys are good. You're not that good. Hold on a couple more games.
So, final thing then, I wanted to ask, what is then next for the Kingston Stampede? And then...
Stockade.
Excuse me, Stampede.
Stockade.
Yeah, it would be the wrong thing. The Stockade. And what is next in terms of the filing?
In terms of the filing, I think it's just a wait-and-see game, right? So... you file and you wait for recognition of the filing, and then they, I guess, assign people to it, and then they figure out what they want to do with it. So it's a little bit of a waiting game. In the meantime, I feel like we have a lot of educating to do about, like, why do this? Why does it matter? And to be honest, I think the biggest misconception is this idea of, like, we're trying to undo all of soccer in the U.S. It's like no. It's like, we're in D4. We should have this ability to move teams up and down through the system. It makes a lot of sense. Like, it's about looking at the entire it's about looking at the entire system and figuring out how to get cooperation between the divisions and the leagues, which we think is good for fans. We think it's good for players. We think it's good for soccer overall, right? And I think we just got to educate people about that. It's like, this is why we're doing it. This is why we care, and this is why. Why we put a lot of work into this thing. What's next for Stockade? We got to find a place to put that trophy in the local brewery. We have our little cookout. I got to go and fold the rest of the T-shirts that haven't been folded. But then, we'll probably take like a month off from just doing soccer all the time and regroup, do the finances, share those online, make some predictions for 2018, and then get to work trying to hit them.
Well, there we go. Well, Dennis, thank you so much for taking the time. Hopefully we can have you back on when, if and when we hear more about the request and what FIFA choose to do.
Yeah, this has been great. Thanks for asking good questions too. I appreciate being on the show.
We try. Sometimes we fail, but we try.
Nice, great job, excellent.
Thank you, Dennis.
Send me my address so you can send me my bronzed cup.
That'll work. And by bronze, you mean wrapped in aluminum foil, right? Is that okay?
Exactly. Yeah.
Perfect.
It's open for interpretation.
All right. I feel like I might actually try to do that. We'll see what happens. But until then, thanks again, and we will talk to you soon.
Very good. Sounds good. I'll talk to you soon.